Hello everyone, my name is Masato Ogawa from Tojiro. Thank you very much for this opportunity today. There are three things I would like to talk about. First of all, I would like to talk about Japanese knives. Secondly, I'd like to talk about Tsubame in Niigata, where our company is located. And thirdly, I'd like to talk about our company. Usually this would take about 90 minutes or more. But today I understand there's only limited time, so I will complete this in 30 minutes or so. I hope it's interesting to you all. First of all, let's look at what exactly are knives. So a bit of history for you. The history of knives is extremely old, and they go all the way back to the stone tools that were used by our ancestors. And 2.5 million years ago in the primitive era, they were already being used. Then as we moved into the Paleolithic, they were used for hunting. And then after that in the Neolithic, for dividing up food and preparing food. Gradually evolving into the use of knives that still remains today. And here you can see some of the Paleolithic tools that were found within Niigata city, which are from 20,000 to 15,000 years ago. And after that, we moved from the Stone Age into the Yayoi era. And then from the Yayoi period, we got copper and iron from the continent and technologies for processing metals. And then that resulted in things like bronze, knives, and also iron materials that could be used. And by the way, we can see this is called tamahagane, which is a kind of steel made using a Japanese tatara furnace from the 5th or 6th century. And the steel frame and steel materials are made from iron sand in a tatara furnace, which is like an accordion's air inlet. This means that iron sand was used to make steel materials from many, many years ago. And roughly speaking, there are various types of knife, but the oldest knives that are still in existence are in Shosoin Temple in Nara, and that would be the one at the top of this diagram. And as the era moved onwards, we get to the Edo period and we see some cuisine culture coming in from the Pacific, and that gave rise to some of knives that are much like the Japanese knives of today. And then there were knives coming in from the West during the Showa period, which have resulted in the knives of today. And I keep saying this word hocho for knife, but what is the origin of this word, you must be wondering. So the word hocho actually comes from a person's name. And here you can see the characters Hote Kaigyu written on the cow's head. And this theory of Hote Kaigyu appears in one of the Songshi, a Chinese book of thought written 2,000 years ago. And there's an anecdote about a cook named Hote-san, who was the personal chef of the king of Gi in old China. And he dismembered a cow in front of the king with a single knife. And so the name carving knife comes from this actual person's name. So it means Hote's knife. It means the carving knife of this chef. And that's where the name originally came from. These days, a more simple Chinese character is used for the word knife. And these characters, the ho, the first character means kitchen, and the second character means man, to make a combination of chef. And if that's the case, then the Hote person that we just discussed may or may not have been the source of the word knife. It is not exactly sure. But something that is very interesting is that is in China they often have another word, saidao, for a knife. So if you go to China, please don't ask for a hocho because nobody will understand you. I'd now like to talk about the manufacturing method of Japanese knives. But really, this would take more than an hour, so I will just give you the brief outline of the manufacturing method. In Japan, there are two main varieties of methods for manufacturing knives. The first is a blacksmithing technique called tanzo. This is a manufacturing method using a blacksmithing technique. It is made in the traditional way by beating what's called a hagane, heating a hagane and beating it into shape with a hammer. The other method is to press the shape of a knife out of a plate using a mold. So this is what we call nuki hamano, or extractable blades. And our mass production method allows us to produce a large quantity of knives in uniform quality, which makes it possible to produce them at an affordable price. There is another method called kata tanzo hamono, die-forged blades. And this is a method used by manufacturers in Germany and China, in which heated steel bars are beaten into shape using a large press. And this method of production is not used in Japan in the manufacture of kitchen knives, and is more used for scissors and blades. And the actual processes can be seen at the Tojiro Open Factory, so if you are interested, then please come along and see them for yourselves. So now, let me talk about what makes a good kitchen knife. There are all kinds of knives being made out there, but how do we distinguish between the good and the bad? What makes a good kitchen knife? Well, of course, it has to have excellent sharpness. It needs to be long-lasting, and it needs to be durable. These are very important elements. So these are the three elements that need to be present for a good knife to be made. But the three key factors of production are the materials, then the structure, and also excellent sharpening. So these three production elements are extremely important to make a good knife. So, looking at the materials, let me just talk about stainless steel and high carbon steel. So, around the world, most knives are either stainless or high carbon. And I'd just like to talk about these stainless and high carbon knives. So both of these are made from iron, and a shaft furnace is used to make the materials. Let me just explain how it works with iron oxide. So iron oxide stabilizes naturally, and it means to be rusty for it to exist. And then we can take off the oxygen by burning it, and then add in coal stone and burn it. Then we can end up with a material that is called pig iron, which is just pure iron. And it's too soft to be used as a material on its own, so we add in carbon, chrome, nickel, and some other trace metals. And these trace metals help to... So for carbon steel and stainless, these are all made originally from iron and are made essentially from the same base material. So a lot of people think that stainless means that it doesn't rust, but actually stainless refers to the construction which stops it from rusting. Stainless, the main part is made from iron, but it also has some chrome in there. And the chrome combines with oxygen to make a membrane on the outside, which stops the inside from rusting. So if the membrane is removed, then it will rust. So stainless does not mean it doesn't rust. For example, so if you have stainless and carbon steel knives which are better, well, it depends whether you're looking for the sharpness. Then, if you're looking for sharpness, then you should go for carbon steel. If you're looking for something that doesn't rust, and it's easy to use, then perhaps stainless is better for you. Now let's move on to knives made in Japan. It's said that Japanese kitchen knives are the best in the world. Why is that? The sharpness. Why did this sharpness occur in Japan? It goes back to Japanese swords. And Japanese people aren't so physically big, so it was very difficult for them to fight with very heavy armor. So samurais had to rely on very sharp weapons that could kill with one blow. This is the history of Japanese swords. And this technology of Japanese swords has gone into the production of knives. But, Europeans and Americans who are bigger in physical stature could wear heavy armor and carry on fighting. They were able to do so. So even if their swords were heavy, it was no problem for them at all. If they take in a very sharp knife to battle, it could end up snapping. So their armor, their helmets and so on, they needed to be extremely strong so that they could not be penetrated by the enemy's weapons, which meant that overseas knives, rather than the sharpness, it was their heaviness and the durability that were the main concerns. So you can already see that they're based on a very different concept to Japanese knives. And the most ancient of all brands is actually the Japanese sword. And some of them have the original makers' names on, like Muramasa or Masamune for so on. I'm sure many of you have heard of these. And the swordsmith would decide the value of the sword, and these would be highly branded goods with the person's name on. So what about the kitchen knife industry in Japan these days? There are many areas, regions producing knives in Japan. The famous ones are Sakai in Osaka, Miki in Hyogo, and Seki in Gifu. Some of them were originally knife-making regions, while others came late to the game after starting out as agricultural regions during the Edo period. So we can divide knife manufacturing regions into two varieties. Here in Niigata, we were originally an agricultural area, but came into the knife-making game as a secondary business. These are slightly old figures, but you can see on this graph the nationwide knife production value and the number of business operators. There are about 100 companies making knives, but you can see that the sales are gradually increasing. Now let's look at the knife production value of 6 major production areas. Seki in Gifu makes up for about 58% of the knives made in Japan, while in Niigata we make about 24%, so we're in second place. Followed by Sakai in Osaka, Echizen City in Fukui Prefecture, and Miki in Hyogo Prefecture. But most of, Sekishi in Gifu and Niigata are making most of the knives. And us also, we are ranked third in terms of domestic production volume. There are a lot of manufacturers, but it means that there are companies that have a division of labour system, and even if they call themselves cutlery manufacturers, companies that only produce handles are also included in that, cutlery manufacturer category. So, there are a lot of manufacturers, but the number of people who are genuinely making knives is actually pretty low. And a very important point recently is the change in the distribution network. The old distribution network used to look like this. There were wholesalers who we would provide to, and they would then provide to wholesalers and then stores and then customers. This was the original distribution channel for kitchen knives, but now it's been disrupted. And thanks to the internet, stores, wholesalers, Tojiro are all going through the internet to consumers. So this is disruption of the existing distribution system. It's made it very complicated, and it's a very serious situation for the knife manufacturing industry. That's why it's very important to protect our brand as the times change. So next, let me tell you a little bit about Tsubame City in Niigata Prefecture, where we are located. So let's look at the history of Tsubame City, first of all. Tsubame is located in the middle of Niigata Prefecture, in a region called the Kaietsu region. It's exactly in the middle of the prefecture, and it's adjoining Niigata City, Nagaoka City, Sanjo City, and Yahiko village. So it's very much in the middle of the prefecture and is part of the third largest economic zone. In 2006, two other cities, Yoshida and formerly Tsubame, merged. And Tsubame used to be written in these kanji. Tsu means port, ba means wave, mei means center, which means in the center of the port, the waves. So the name of Tsubame, the original name, is saying right in the middle of the wave and the port. The river was a very important place originally, but the kanji today has changed to a different character. But if you look at Tsubame on the map here, you can see how the river winds through it. The Shinano River and the Nakanokuchi River intertwine, but 100 years ago, the All-Kochi Diversion Channel was a feat of engineering where the river upstream was diverted, making an artificial river and reducing the amount of water damage in the area. So this region is now much less prone to flooding disasters. There used to be a lot of flooding disasters, which had a big impact on the agricultural industry. Actually, in 2004, you can see this sort of water damage in this photo. And in the Edo period, the local governors ordered farmers to take up a secondary business, such as metal processing, as a countermeasure against water damage, and they made things such as Japanese nails. Here you can see a sample of a Japanese nail. It looks a bit like a camping peg, doesn't it? But there were lots of varieties of nails like this. Also, next to Tsubame, we have Mount Kakuda, and there is a Mazedozan copper mine there, which provides very good quality copper. And originally, the artisans had the mining rights here, and that's helped to really develop the metal processing industry in the area. That was about 200 years ago. Here you can see lifestyle goods made from copper, and it came from a technology called tanking, and that helped to really put Tsubame's metal processing on the map. This is a company called Gyokusendo, which opened in 1816, and they had this hammering technique of copper as their original technique. But various metal processing technologies have been brought together by Gyokusendo, and now they bring together lots of artisans under one roof. So if you go to Gyokusendo, you can see all of the artisans working away together in one room. So please do go and check it out if you have the chance. The factory is open for visitors. However, metal processing in Tsubame has been a long and turbulent history. I spoke about how, European nails disrupted the Japanese ones and meant that there was no demand. Also, these Kiseru pipes were replaced by paper cigarettes. And then after that, these files called yasuri were replaced by cheaper ones from overseas, which meant that, and spoons and forks, which were a byword for Tsubame, lost share to ones made in China that were cheaper. And then more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic has hit the eating out industry majorly, which means Tsubame's metal processing has had a seriously difficult time. There are many industries facing bankruptcy, and in the last 2 and 3 years, we often hear of companies going bankrupt. But, artisans in Tsubame are always thinking about how to make new things and how to recover, and will create new products, even though they've had their share of bitter experiences. So something that's very important to Tsubame recently is industrial tourism. And Niigata region has the Yahiko shrine and the other shrines, but it's not very blessed with tourism resources. So you can see these pink stripes here, but these are the Echigo Sanjo Blacksmith Festival, where factories are open to the public. And this Koba Tsubame Sanjo Factory Festival started in 2003, and 200 factories every October open their factories to the public to show them the front line of manufacturing. Koba in Japanese means factory, but it also means a place of cultivation, which is agriculture, and a place of purchase, which is commerce. So it is a festival for cultivation and purchasing. And you can see that these events since 2013 are becoming more and more well known. But since last year, because of the pandemic, we could not have the event. In 2020, we held the event online. And in 2021, we made one factory into an exhibition area. And at long last this year, for the first time in 3 years, we were able to hold the event. So 82 factories participated, and we called it Beyond Koba. It was 3 days of festivals and sacred places, and we welcomed in customers from inside and outside the prefecture. You can see a little bit what it looked like in this photo here, with the pink stripes decorating the factory and the staff showing people around, and customers wearing pink striped masks as their admission ticket. So they were able to experience making a paper knife and to see the actual production processes and to see really how the factory is during a working day. So this manufacturing experience, it's a real experience, and we also teach people how to resharpen knives. So people can really sense the artisan spirit, and it brings together artisans and visitors. But, usually these artisans, these craftsmen don't get the chance to mingle with the general public and to explain their products and their handiworks. So this was the first time for them to really explain face-to-face to consumers what they are doing in the factories. And another objective is to create employment. So some people come to the open day and become workers in this industry. This is an article introducing how the factory led to one person becoming employed there. So we do suffer from unemployment and have a hard time finding craftsmanship in this region, so this is a very important way of attracting potential recruits and employees through the open day at the factory. And also the relationship between the different production districts. So apart from Tsubame and Sanjo region, there are other areas that are opening their factories. I believe Nosaku-san is going to talk later on, but Takaoka City in Toyama is one of these that we have an exchange with. And so we do exchange with these other factories that are doing similar open days. I think during the factory festival in 2019, other factories from the same and from other production areas came to appeal, their factories. And other appeal points of Tsubame Sanjo, these are chefs from the Tsubame Sanjo region, and they are carrying out events. I think in 2017 we have one called the Feast of the Young Lions, where a full course dinner with 150 guests from Tsubame-shi, which was also attended by Twin Bird, a household appliance manufacturer in Tsubame City, as well as a gala dinner using locally produced tools. So we had the locally produced food with locally produced tools for a locally produced event. And rethinking our work is another element of these factory festivals that I was just referring to. Those of us running the events, the craftsmanship themselves, we all have a chance to think about what we are doing here in Tsubame. So I would like to use this as the jumping point for my next point to talk about Tsubame-shi in Niigata, where we are and what we are about. So this is what I wanted to talk about to you most today. And this is about our company, Tojiro. So first of all, our history. We were established in 1953, and we originally made farming equipment and tools. But in the winter, it was hard to sell much, and so from making fruits knives, we started to make edged tools or blades. And in this photo, you can see on the right-hand side, you can see a weeding machine here. And our company, is only 75 years old and has only just been making Japanese swords for that amount of time. So as a sword maker, we're still in the rookie league. But in that sense, we don't have any, we're not unfettered by old rules and company traditions, and we have the ability to proactively make new techniques. And we have three main characteristics in our company. Firstly, there are only 4 companies in Japan which manufacturing using an integrated production system. And, there are actually only 4 of these companies in the whole of Japan with an integrated production system, one of which is us. The second is that we're the world's largest manufacturer of cladded blade knives. This involves a lot of materials that we have to bring together, and these cladded blade knives are our speciality. You can see the ripple in the blade, but this is what we call Damascus steel, and we're very good at making these multi-layered knives. And these cladded blade knife, our share, we're competing for the world's first and second place. And this is Japanese technology, and if you're first in Japan, then that means you're first in the world. So these multi-layer structures are, as you can see here, the tamahagane is the blue part, and with this 3-layer structure, it's very difficult for it to rust, but it retains the sharpness. It's also stainless, so good at ease of handling, similar to stainless steel. And the other important thing is the all-stainless handle. This all-stainless handle is something that was originally invented in Tsubame City. It has also been used in table knives as well. It means that the handle part is actually hollow. So it's very light, but very durable. However, it requires very delicate technology to manufacture it. And only makers in Tsubame in Japan are able to do it. So this all stainless are very hygienic without any spaces. They can be used semi-permanently. And they're extremely lightweight, lighter than wooden handles as well. So I'd like to talk about our third characteristic, and that's that we have an extremely strong export to overseas. We basically have dealings with 196. Well, they said there are 196 countries in the world, and we have dealings with about 100 of these. And some 40 of these are permanently dealing with us. And half of our sales are accounted for by exports. And this is due to the popularity of Japanese food around the world, partially. But these have now become, Japanese food has now become the standard cuisine rather than just a boom. It's healthy and it's becoming very commonplace. But the sharpness of Japanese knives has really become recognized around the world, and that's propelled our strong exports. So let me tell you a bit about our internet sales. Over the last 20 years, this has grown greatly. Here you can see our internet sales website. And we've been selling on the internet since the year 2000, the oldest Japanese knife maker on the net since then. We offer name engraving services and other really cool services, so we're a bit of a pioneer in this industry. The impacts of the pandemic were serious on the manufacturing industry, but there was also a rise in demand for people staying at home, which meant that our sales actually went up. So, thankfully, orders for knives, including from overseas, have been steady, which we are very thankful for. In particular, America and China, they did have very big impacts due to the pandemic, but because, they had very good sales distribution channels already established on the internet, we were able to increase our sales to the demand that existed before the pandemic. So whether or not you can sell on the internet amounts to risk aversion. So it shows how important internet sales are. And we really see the importance of internet sales in this day and age. So let's just look at food education activities. We also carry out seminars to do with cuisine and cooking. And we have the knife gallery facilities on the second floor with a kitchen studio. So, local school children can come in for factory tours and then also learn about the manufacturing of knives. And also we do lectures for pros as well. So we're now trying to transmit the importance of resharpening. Our artisans go to cities abroad, and in English, they teach people how to resharpen their knives. And Japanese knives are extremely good in terms of sharpness, but we have this culture of resharpening, so we are also selling that as part of our product. You need to understand resharpening to understand knives properly, so we are carrying out activities to promote this abroad. And for food culture as well, we have some connections with the French Culinary Culture Centre and an affiliated organisation of Tokyo Gas. So for the past 20 years, we have been supporting the spread of French cuisine in Japan. We cooperate with various organisations, and you can see Shin Miyazaki here, winner of the CGB Service World Contest in 2012, and he uses one of our knives, and here you can see him winning in 2012 and with one of our knives in his hand. And also competitions as well. We sponsor competitions such as the one that was won by Mr. Miyazaki. And you can see him here with our president up on the stage being presented with his award. And just some photos of an open factory session. And I mentioned that we're putting a lot of effort into these at the moment. This is a facility that we opened in 2015, which has a shop for knives and also a place where you can carry out maintenance and do sightseeing. So if you come in through the entrance, there's no glass panel there. You can actually walk around in the same space and get the enthusiasm of the artisans and see them at work. Before the pandemic, you could talk to the artisans, the craftsmen direct and communicate with them, and that was something that we were really proud of. But, due to the pandemic, it's been difficult to do that, but we're hoping very much to resume these sorts of activities as the pandemic comes to an end. So, to discover just how challenging it is to make knives, we like people to experience and to observe the actual processes, and that's why we have the open factories. And knives are, industrial goods, but the process is more like a handicraft itself. And it's almost the same process as making a Japanese sword. All of this can be seen at the facilities. And the aim here is to find the new bearers of the craftsmen. And I think I spoke about this just now, but passing on this technology to new generations is very important. We need to train the next generation of young artisans and to pass on these Japanese traditional techniques. Even in an era today where knife, technologies are very developed, it's all about the artisans themselves. And these technologies can't be quantified in numerical form, but they have a very important place in Japanese craftsmanship. And that's why we are working hard to pass them on. So I'm running out of time here, but delicious food starts with high-quality knives. And Tsubame, as well as making knives, we have a lot of metal manufacturing going on here, and it's a very interesting town. So please do come and check it out. We look forward to welcoming you and showing you all about metalworking manufactured goods in Tsubame. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much for your attendance today. We have provided a URL in the YouTube summary section, and we would appreciate your cooperation in answering our survey. The deadline for responses is November 26, 2022. JASO will continue to organise various events at TIEC as a base for international exchange. We very much look forward to seeing you at our events at TIEC in future. The 55th TIEC Cross-cultural Seminar will be held on Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Please check the JASO website for more details.